from the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast.
Can harvest catch up? The latest crop progress is out from USDA. Plus, drought didn't seem to hurt the sunflower crop in North Dakota. Agribusiness, outside market influence.
For agricultural commodities, there's these outside markets, because when the funds come in and buy, they like to buy bushel baskets of commodities.
A dairy report looking at price and production forecasts. And new high-tech weather tools are helping forecasters keep an eye on the world's most dangerous storms.
AgDay, presented by the Chevy Silverado. High-strength steel for high-strength dependability.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Last week, soggy, wet weather put harvest in slow motion. USDA rolling out an update on crop progress Monday. While Minnesota was the garden spot all summer long as far as condition goes, it's now the leader in harvest delays. USDA says just 7% of the state's corn has been harvested, 31 points behind average. Soybeans don't look any better, now 37 points behind the 5-year average. Overall, corn harvest in the country is 19 points off the average pace, with less than a third now picked. In addition to Minnesota, big delays in Iowa. It's 28 points behind. Soybean harvest is about at the halfway point, but it's 11 points behind the 5-year average. Joining Minnesota with big delays is Iowa, Nebraska, which are both 34 points behind. And glancing at winter wheat, farmers are delayed in getting seed in the ground there. Kansas, 33 points behind. Betsy Gibbon is in Nebraska this week for our ID Harvest Tour. She has a preview of her story from the Cornhusker State.
Farmers in Nebraska say they're usually in the middle of harvesting corn right now, but for this time in October, they're just now starting to cut beans.
We're pushing probably close to 8 inches of rain, and 2.5 of that come in about 24 hours just a couple days ago. I'm going to say on beans, we're probably under 5% harvested right here. There's absolutely no corn that's been taken. You know, I've got 10 to 14 days of beans in front of me, so it's getting a little worrisome. It brings back horrible memories of '09. '09 we had beans, snow on the beans when we were out in the field. We didn't start harvesting corn until the first week of November.
Sunflower growers have struggled to get any traction with that harvest. Of the top 4 sunflower growing states last week, all 4 were running behind average. In North Dakota, this summer's drought does not appear to have much of an impact on early acres being cut. Cliff Naylor from affiliate KFYR reports on how the late season row crop weathered this year's dry conditions.
A few inches of timely rains in August saved these seeds.
Sunflower crop is really a big surprise. Best sunflower crop we've ever raised.
Clark Coleman says he never imagined he would be seeing yields of 2,400 to 3,500 pounds per acre.
It was kind of one of those stories where perfect rain at the perfect time, and they did really well.
Back at the end of July, 45% of the North Dakota sunflower crop was rated poor to very poor. Below average precipitation in May, June, and July, combined with severe, extreme, and exceptional drought, were destroying it.
The rain we had in August really made a difference. You know, the plants are going to be shorter this year, but the head size is normal to even a little bit above normal, I would say, in most cases.
Clark Coleman farms with his brother Kurt. They say 6 to 7 inches of rain fell on their sunflowers in August. Other areas of the state received 2 to 5 inches, and farmers are now reaping the benefits of that moisture.
The heads are perfect size and uniform, and a real nice crop. Actually, the quality is really good too.
North Dakota farmers planted 500,000 acres of sunflowers this year. Coleman says if he'd known in May what he knows now, he would have planted a lot more.
Sunflower is a very drought-resistant crop, and this year is a year where it really proved that.
This year's sunflower harvest should wrap up the first week of November, weather permitting. I'm Cliff Naylor, reporting for AgDay.
North Dakota's drought is slowly disappearing. Last week's drought monitor showing 28% of the state is now drought-free, 2% still in extreme drought. But back in July, 35% of the state was in extreme drought. On the infrastructure side, Lock and Dam 52 now open on the Ohio River. It shut down for nearly a week because of rising river levels. This is the same lock that shut down in early September because of unscheduled maintenance. Now on Monday, the backup included nearly 60 vessels and more than 650 barges stretching 20 miles long. Now that BASF has announced its intentions to buy seed assets from Bayer, what impact will that have on the industry as a whole? Bayer agreeing to sell an important part of its crop science business for about $7 billion. The deal includes Bayer's Liberty Link business and the canola and cottonseed soybean seed operations. Divesting the seed technology allows Bayer and Monsanto to move closer to its merger. The companies are still awaiting approval from other countries. Now, selling the seed tech to BASF helps alleviate competition fears. Alan Gray from Purdue University's Center for Food and Agricultural Business explains the ramifications of the deal, which must also receive regulatory approval.
Not likely to be nearly as highly scrutinized as many of the bigger mergers have gone on, because this is simply an asset sale rather than a merger. But nonetheless, it's a significant one, and in some markets can be pretty significant. One of the things that was not clear early on was BASF was one of the major ag chemical suppliers that really didn't have any significant play in the seed industry, and would they become part of the seed industry or not. Obviously the other mergers, particularly Dow DuPont and the Bayer Monsanto, show us that at least at the moment, ag chemical companies want a seed portfolio as part of what they're bringing to the marketplace to sort of bring that whole package.
BASF will take on 1,800 additional employees and will gain relevant intellectual property and facilities. You can be sure to read more about that BASF deal on agweb.com. Mike Hoffman's back in the Weather Center today, joins us with today's crop comments. Welcome back, Mike.
Good morning, Clinton. Trees are starting to change color in northern Indiana. This is what it looks like in St. Joseph County. The top of the maple tree is starting to turn. The blue skies are a far cry from this past weekend. This part of Indiana got 4 inches of rain just on Saturday. Across the state line in Michigan, they got even more than that, bringing harvest to a stop. And in eastern Pennsylvania, a farmer from Lebanon County said they're seeing consistently good corn, but disappointing beans. Last week's crop progress report showed 84% of Pennsylvania corn is good to excellent. A wet summer in PA made for some excellent corn. Even marginal, hilly farms are giving 225 bushel corn. Now, taking a look at the weather map, high pressure just dominating most of the lower 48. We'll show you where a few areas are going to get some rain and snow coming up in just a few minutes. First, here are some hometown temps.
Ever wake up wondering what does today's weather have in store? Well, with weather updates, it delivers the local forecast right to your cell phone each morning to make preparing for the day easier. Just text Weather 6 to 31313 to get started.
All right, when we come back, we'll talk about some of the outside influences on our commodity markets. And later, we're headed across the Atlantic to an expo dedicated to future technology for tracking the world's most dangerous storms.
Instinct and N-Serve nitrogen stabilizers don't just stabilize nitrogen, they maximize it. So corn crops give them max in return. Learn more at Max In, Max Out.
Agribusiness major commodities getting off to a slow start this week. Let's get details from our friends on the floor.
Hi, it's been a lower day in the grain markets, and it's really been the soy complex that's taken the big hit so far here today. Trade reacting to improving weather forecasts this week after some very heavy rains through chunks of the Midwest over the weekend. But the producer has been harvesting soybeans and leaving corn out in the field. The corn moisture levels are a little high, so they've been harvesting soybeans and delivering on some contracts. Not really doing too much new selling, but if they are going to sell something, it will be in the soybeans. Export inspections really below expectations for corn and wheat, not helping those markets out at all. Above expectations for soybeans, but soybeans got some bad news with the NOPA crush data here for September that was below trade expectations. Thanks very much. This is Jack Scoville, Vice President of Price Futures Group, here on the CME Group floor with some comments for the markets.
Naomi Bloom with Stuart Peterson, our guest here at the Agribusiness Desk today. Let's talk about these outside markets. You know, crude has found some strength. The dollar was weaker last week, and then we've got some export stuff that we're starting to wonder about. What are you watching in that mix to kind of give you some indicators about commodities?
Yeah, keeping an eye actually on all of them every day right now. I think that's going to be one of the main means of movement for commodities in general, for agricultural commodities, is these outside markets, because when the funds come in and buy, they like to buy bushel baskets of commodities. So when the dollar is lower, that's really great for exports. And the dollar had gotten all the way down to 91, and then we saw just a recent bump up here, but where it got up to was some short-term overhead resistance at 94. Looking for that to stay between 91 and 94 for probably a few more weeks. until we get a better idea if the Fed is going to be raising interest rates or not.
Sure.
So in addition to the dollar, keeping an eye on crude oil. And the reason that's important is because OPEC has been doing a good job collectively of behaving, and everybody is cooperating and cutting production. So we aren't, the United States, we are increasing production. So we've seen crude oil stabilize because production overall is stabilizing. But the great thing about crude oil right now for demand is that China demand has been increasing substantially. And in fact, they had a record import. They're importing close to 8.5 million barrels a day. So that's just really helping with the surplus of supplies that are out there right now. If crude oil can continue to work higher, then of course that'll fall into corn, because of course a third of the value of corn is ethanol and an energy tied into crude oil. So I want to keep an eye on the crude oil markets, the dollar, those other outside markets, because they are going to also be a factor as we close out 2017 and head into 2018.
All right, well, it'll be something to watch, and it's interesting how all those play together, and I think you're exactly right. These outside funds are really like to come in and look at commodities as a whole.
Yeah,
and so that can only help ag overall. Naomi, thank you for being here. We'll be back in more AgDay just a minute.
To discuss marketing strategies, call 800-334-9779 or visit stewartpeterson.com. AgDay, brought to you by the Enlist Weed Control System. More weed control, less drift and volatility, maximum yield potential. AgDay weather, brought to you by Kawasaki and the new Mule Pro FXR side-by-side. Ride like a boss with high-end styling and rugged capability.
Welcome back to AgDay. Meteorologist Mike Hoffman looking at the weather map this week, Mike, and for once it looks pretty clear through most of the country.
I think I could have stayed home today.
Yeah, almost.
Not a whole lot going on. 3 areas of high pressure, obviously. Obviously, there are some areas that are going to get a little bit of moisture, Florida being one of them, with a stationary front across the southern part of that state, and the Pacific Northwest with a cold front coming in, giving some mainly rain, but a few of the highest elevations getting some snow, maybe a couple of showers in the far northern and eastern portions of the Great Lakes. And putting the maps into motion, still not a lot going on. Look at all the sunshine. You just don't see this very often, especially this time of the year when things are usually changing a little bit. But you'll continue to see those scattered showers and thunderstorms in Florida this afternoon. Most of those 1 or 2 spots to get a shower this morning in the Great Lakes, that's all moving east, and that system in the northwest continues to come in. We also have a weak area of low pressure, kind of unusual there, coming into central and southern California. It doesn't look like a lot of moisture with it, but by tomorrow morning, a few scattered showers coming into those areas. And as we head through the day tomorrow, this is a fast-moving cool front, but it's Pacific air behind it. Not exactly really cold air by any stretch of the imagination for this time of the year. And another system starts to come into Washington in the northern Rockies with some rain and mountain snow once again. Precipitation estimates past 24 hours, some light amounts, parts of the southeast coast into Florida, and also a little bit in the far northwestern portions of the country. We'll add some more in Florida. And we'll add some more in the Pacific Northwest, as you can see, in the northern Rockies. And anything that does fall across the Great Lakes or the Northeast should be less than 1/10 of an inch, more than likely. Snowfall pretty much confined to the far northwest, and most of that's even going to be in western Canada. Some of those areas probably going to get a lot of snow. Excuse me, but a little bit of that will probably sneak across the U.S.-Canadian border there into the highest elevations of the northern Rockies. Highs this afternoon, very warm for this time of the year, 70s all the way up to Bismarck, 60s in the central and eastern Ohio Valley, not bad there. Heat continues, although that's not atypical, in the desert southwest. You can see tomorrow afternoon still some 70s, does cool down a little bit in the northern plains, but pretty comfortable air across a good chunk of the lower 48. Jet stream showing troughs moving quickly from west to east, most of them staying in Canada. A decent trough coming in by the weekend in the west coast. That moves into the Great Lakes by early next week, and that may have some chilly air behind it for the eastern 2/3 of the country by the middle of next week. That's a look across the country. Now let's take a look at some local forecasts. We'll head to Salem, Oregon. First of all, cloudy and cool with some rain at times. High temperature around 60 degrees. Little Rock, Arkansas, sunny and very nice. High temperature of 73 this afternoon. And taking a look at Akron, Ohio, lots of sunshine and comfortable. High 66.
We'll check in on the dairy industry next on our dairy report, including the latest price predictions from USDA. And later, this high-tech weather gear helping forecasters keep a close watch on future storms.
Unlock the power of ag technology this December in Indianapolis at the first ever Ag Tech Expo. Learn all about it at farmjournalagtech.com.
The Dairy Report on Ag Day is brought to you by QLF. For 40 years, QLF has been proud to support American farmers that feed the world.
In our Dairy Report, NAFTA negotiators taking Canada's Dairy Supply Management Program head-on in the latest round of talks. Over the weekend, the trade team demanding eliminating Class 7 pricing and calling for more transparency in pricing decisions. Trade experts warn NAFTA's fate may now hang on how flexible the U.S. is in those demands. The fifth round of talks are scheduled for Mexico City in early November. Speaking of supplies, the USDA is set to release its monthly dairy production report on Friday. After continued production growth this year, analysts expect that to continue on into September.
Milk production per cow is up this year per pounds. Production is up. You've got a lot of things that just point to a continuation of the same event. More importantly, your weather in September here has been ideal. So there's no threat to any kind of a stress on the cattle with September weather.
Last week in USDA supply demand report, the agency forecasting lower milk prices in 2018. The report expecting all milk prices to hold steady through this year at $17.75 to $17.85, while calling for next year's prices to be somewhere between $17.45 and $18.35. Now, 2018 milk production, it is expected to be higher on growth in milk per cow. Cow numbers were forecast lower, however. When we come back, high-tech tools helping weather forecasters keep watch on that wild weather.
In the Country, sponsored by Kubota. See the hardest working tractors in ag at Kubota.com or visit your local Kubota dealer today.
New technology is helping to better predict and monitor extreme weather events like this year's Atlantic hurricane season. As weather gadgets become more sophisticated, forecasters are increasingly able to warn when bad storms are on the way. Welcome to the Meteorological Technology World Expo in Amsterdam. Nearly 180 exhibitors showcasing their latest weather forecasting and observation technology.
This has definitely been a very dynamic hurricane season.
Barron Services is developing what it calls critical weather intelligence, using technologies like radars, satellites, and weather sensors to track real-time information that's then integrated into computer software.
So instead of a decision maker having to look at sea surface temperature and Saharan dust levels and a bunch of different products, we boil that down to a very simple green means a hurricane is going to weaken. Yellow means the hurricane is going to stay about the same, and red means the hurricane is going to intensify. And so it allows them to see over a period of time and the track of a hurricane how that hurricane is going to change.
The UK's FT Technologies is showing off its weather sensor, said to be resistant to extreme weather conditions.
So the FT wind sensor's big advantage is its robustness, and therefore it can survive in harsh environments and allow weather forecasters and meteorologists to have data available not only before major events but during major events, whether those are typhoons that we've seen recently in the Caribbean, or the high wind storms we see in Asia, or dust storms that we see in northern China, or even in coastal areas where salt corrosion can badly affect remote weather stations.
It uses acoustic or ultrasonic waves that resonate inside a small cavity and measure the speed and direction of the wind. Now, Swiss-based Meteomatics unveiling a Meteo drone equipped with weather sensors to collect data in the first mile of the atmosphere. Currently, weather balloons are the only way to measure atmospheric changes in this zone, but they're expensive.
The analogy is quite similar to the weather balloon. We are taking direct measurement readings of the so-called prognostic variables like temperature, wind speed, wind direction, air pressure, and humidity, and go out with that into the short-term forecast, and this significantly can improve fog forecasts and thunderstorm forecasts.
Such modeling and weather data may help in the future, while this year, howling winds, deadly floods, and fire are pushing disaster costs to near unprecedented numbers. Speaking of technology, be sure to join us for the Farm Journal Ag Tech Expo in December in Indianapolis. Plenty to learn and do. You can get details at agweb.com. That's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. Spent part of your day with us. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day in farm country.
AgDay, brought to you by Ram Commercial, America's longest lasting heavy-duty pickups.